Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I hope you can all hear me okay. I'm just going to give it another minute or two just to make sure that everyone who wants to be here can be here for this evening. And just do a couple of fidgety things on my computer. So, welcome. And now's a chance just to settle in a little bit, just to make sure that everything is, feeling good in our bodies, that we're in a comfortable position. We'll be here for about, 20 minutes or so this evening. So just waiting for a couple more people to join, and then we'll take things from there. Okay. So, as I say, just encouraging you to find a position that's comfortable for your body for about 20 minutes or so. And I'll give you a little bit of an introduction and an update about what I'm up to, what this new launch is all about. Okay, so just giving people a couple of minutes to arrive. So let's make a start. My name's Alexa. And this evening I'm launching a new venture for me called Green Mountains. And I thought I'd start with why I've called it Green Mountains as a little bit of a scene set. It's primarily because I love being in the mountains, particularly here in the UK, where they're also green and lush. And also one of my favourite short mindfulness practices is called the mountain practice. So that's a little bit of a giveaway, isn't it, perhaps, that this new offering is as a mindfulness teacher and coach, which I am very excited about. I started training as I find that a lot of the runners that I coach, the sports massage patients that I have at the moment, have quite busy, hectic lives, often struggling a bit with stress or overwhelm, anxiety or depression, possibly even also chronic pain, fatigue, or other health conditions. So I thought it would be useful for me to add another string to my bow to help and support in those areas. And also over the last few years, I've had I've had my own mindful practice, and I've found that incredibly useful. In particular to help manage a couple of health conditions I have and my anxiety levels, which can creep up a little bit. So I really wanted to extend what I've learned, both professionally and personally, to do my best to help and support others. So a good place to start perhaps is, what is mindfulness? Because there's a huge amount out there about it on the internet. And I often think that that can sometimes add to the confusion rather than clarify things. So mindfulness is about paying attention non-judgmentally to what is going on in the moment. So there's a couple of aspects there: paying attention to what's going on in the moment, and also non-judgmentally, so trying not to have sort of, thoughts or annoyances with what the things are that you're noticing. So this might be paying full attention to nature. I was out on a lovely walk with our dog this morning, and was just listening to the rain and sort of feeling the squishiness of the mud under my feet, and trying not to look at my phone and get distracted by too many other things. It might be really listening to some music. It might be really taking in the experience for a couple of minutes of those first few sips of a really nice hot drink. So it can be, kind of engaging a little in some of these types of activities, or it can be more just paying attention to what is going on in your own body and brain. And actually, when we start to look, there's often a lot more going on than we think. So the challenge can be that I think we've often trained ourselves, particularly in modern society, to always be doing things. We're working or we're reading something online or even in a book, we're scrolling on social media or on the internet, we're watching stuff on television or videos, we're thinking, we're planning. So we've almost kind of done quite a good job of training our minds to naturally try and fill empty or quiet space with thoughts and things and ideas. And what mindfulness really is trying to train our brains a little bit to just allow some of those calm spaces to be. So I like to think of it as like being at a station. We can watch the train arrive and we can watch the train leave. That's like our thoughts. They will always come into our heads, but we don't have to kind of get involved with them, jump on them, start thinking about them, start thinking ahead to the day or the to-do list. We can just watch them arrive and we can watch them leave again. We don't have to get on the train, so to speak, with those thoughts and ideas. And we do have a choice, and we can build up our ability to have that choice about how we engage with our thoughts. And we do that with mindfulness practice. So I thought the next thing that'd be useful just to touch on is what mindfulness isn't, because I think there are quite a lot of preconceptions out there about mindfulness maybe being sitting cross-legged with our eyes closed, completely zen, and with no thoughts at all in our head. Now, firstly, sitting cross-legged on the floor is quite uncomfortable for most people, so that's definitely not a requirement. And secondly, our brains have quite a constant stream of thoughts. That's what brains do. So instead of trying to push them away or ignore them or get on that train and go on a little journey with that thought, we can start to be able to choose to treat them kindly, maybe say that they're not needed, and watch them drift off. Like watching that train leave the station, or another analogy I like is watching that leaf float past you down the river. You've seen it, you've acknowledged it, and you've let it go. And mindfulness is a practice, and it's been proven through some fantastic neuroscience to physically change our brains over time, the structure of our brains, how those areas connect with each other and communicate with each other. So the more we practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes, the easier it is to be less reactive, maybe less stressed or overwhelmed, and be able to use that space to maybe learn a bit about ourselves and treat ourselves with a little bit more care and compassion. I'm a firm believer that mindfulness is increasingly important in the current societies we live in. So I think the modern world really kind of encourages and rewards us being in doing mode the whole time. We're constantly kind of doing stuff, either thinking about things or physically kind of doing different tasks. Work is sort of creeping into our home lives a little bit, both with working at home and being contactable anywhere with modern technology. The apps and feeds on our phones and on websites are specifically designed to keep us scrolling, keep us refreshing, keep us checking back. And there's something about the 24-hour news cycle, and they just make money from continuing to encourage people to watch. And I don't know about you, but I find it quite overwhelming, stressful, upsetting, anxiety provoking. And there's more and more evidence building to show that being in that doing mode all the time, constantly having all of this input and stuff for our brain to do and think about, is actually not that great for our bodies and minds. It's linked to higher rates of cardiovascular disease, digestive complaints, mental health conditions, and even some form of more serious illnesses, pain and fatigue conditions. So the way I think about it is that our bodies and brains are just not evolved or designed for this sort of always on life. They're designed to have some downtime where they can think, process, settle, do all the important background stuff we need them to be able to do for our overall health and well-being. So maybe just going back sort of 20 or 30 years or so, the news would arrive daily in a newspaper. and work would stay in our place of work. And going back 100 years or so, most people's evenings would be gloriously relaxing, as quite frankly, there wasn't that much to do. So our brains and bodies are trying to do the best they can to work in this kind of always on modern society. And mindfulness can give them a little bit of a helping hand to be able to do that, gradually build that time where we've got some downtime, where we've got a little bit of time to compassionately notice what our brains and bodies are doing, and notice what they need. So yeah, with all of that stuff going on in modern society, I do kind of wonder whether that's people that, that's what's at play with increasing numbers of people struggling with these kinds of health conditions. And it's important to realize that, it's the culture that has changed. We're the same as we always have been. It's not an us problem. It's a sort of more of like a society and culture that we've created for ourselves issue. So I touched on a few of the things that mindfulness can help with a little bit earlier. And some fantastic studies have confirmed that mindfulness reliably reduces the experience of pain, particularly useful for those perhaps who have longer term or chronic pain conditions. Mindfulness can reduce blood pressure and lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. It helps lower the risk of anxiety and depression. It's shown to be as good as, but without the side effects, as some of the most popular anti-anxiety medications. It can help prevent and improve stress, and also linked to that, things like headaches and migraines. And as a little bit of a curveball, it's also been shown to have some great results in sports. It can reduce mental fatigue in athletes, which, if you're running a marathon this spring, will be quite useful. So I will share my website link a little bit later. It's in my bio on YouTube that you can find after this live stream, but all the links to the studies are on my website if you fancy a little bit of further reading. But suffice to say that there are a huge number of benefits, and more being discovered all the time as the number of people practicing and the number of studies that are being done keeps growing. So how can I help? My goal really is to bring a kind and compassionate and bespoke mindfulness approach to every individual that I work with, whether that's, alongside some of the ways people interact with me already, or whether that's completely focused on mindfulness as a goal. So as a mindfulness coach, I can work alongside you from where you are right now, and to weave a mindfulness practice into your life to help support you and improve your well-being in a way that works for you. Something that I've learned in a lot of the work that I've done over the few years is that sort of bespoke approach just for that individual works really, really beautifully and very effectively. I mentioned my website, and on that website, on the services tab or area, you can find a button to book in for a complimentary chat on how I might be able to help you, or just to find out a little bit more about mindfulness if today has piqued your interest. And you can also email me and message me. Again, those details can be found on my website or on the homepage of this YouTube channel. So I thought, given the fact I've been talking a little bit about mindfulness, that we might give a little bit of mindfulness a go, just to finish off with. So I'm going to lead you in a little bit of a practice. It'll be about 5 minutes long. And at the end of that 5 minutes, there'll just be a little bit of a period of silence, and then I'll let you all drift off into your evenings after a very brief and quiet goodbye from me. So there won't be any more thinking or learning or doing to do after this practice from me, at least. So before we begin, just double checking that we're in a fairly comfortable posture. So that might be sitting down, it might be lying down. Make sure that you're warm enough. So I'll give you a minute or so just to maybe grab a blanket or a cushion if that would make you more comfortable. The key is to be in whatever position is the most comfortable and feels the nicest for you at this time in an early evening on a slightly rainy and windy day. In weather like this, I quite like being under a blanket, if I'm honest. It always makes me feel a little bit better. So, what we're going to practice today is something called feet on the floor, body on the chair. It doesn't have to be a chair, it can be a sofa, it can be a bed, but just our body somewhere a little bit solid and resting. As I say, it's going to be about 5 minutes long, and I will talk you through a little bit of guidance, and there will also be a few periods of silence, just so you're not too worried that the stream has gone down or your internet's fallen over. And with every mindfulness practice, everything I talk through is invitational. So that means it's completely optional. If you fancy giving it a go, wonderful. If you don't, that's wonderful too. Just take little bits of it that you find useful. And if you don't find it useful, just have a little bit of a sit and have a little bit of peace and quiet for 5 minutes. Okay. So if you're wanting to and comfortable to close your eyes, then that's an option to do that. Or if not, just maybe lowering your gaze a little bit so you're looking downwards slightly. And we're just going to take a moment here to feel into our bodies a little bit. To notice where the weight of our bodies is landing. That might be in the sit bones on our chair. That might be with our feet on the floor. Noticing where gravity is holding us and letting us sink into wherever we happen to be at the moment. So I'm just going to suggest that we start by feeling our way into our feet. Where are your feet at the moment? Perhaps their soles of the feet are pressing into the ground. Perhaps they're curled up underneath you on the sofa. Perhaps they're underneath a blanket. So just feel into those feet and notice the sensations, where the weight of the feet are pressing downwards into what's ever beneath them. Maybe the sensations of any socks or slippers on the skin. Maybe the temperature of our feet. Are they cool or warm? Perhaps our toes are feeling a little different to our heels. Maybe the soles of our feet are having a different set of sensory experiences to the tops of our feet at the moment. Just really seeing what we can experience in these wonderfully hard-working feet of ours. So just gently now, we're going to shift our attention to somewhere where our body is resting into the surface beneath us. So that might be our sit bones or our bottoms on a chair, on a sofa. It might be our backs and our shoulders If we're lying down, and feeling just the weight and the solidity of our bodies pressing downwards towards the ground. Noticing perhaps that solid feeling of our skeleton, that sense of weight of our torso. Maybe the surface beneath us. Is it warm, comfortable and squashy? Is it solid? Is it cushioned? Just noticing how it feels to sit or lie on this surface that you're on at the moment. And now we're just going to very gently bring our attention back to the space around us. There might be some light coming through your eyelids, or that you can see with your lowered eyes. There might be some sounds in the space around you or in the distance. I'd invite you to perhaps bring a little movement into the body, maybe just gently moving the fingers and the toes. A little stretch, if that feels good for you. And then as and when you're ready, just lifting your gaze or opening your eyes. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining me this evening. I really, really appreciate you being here with me tonight, practicing together with me. I wish you a wonderful evening. And as I say, if you want to drop me a line and find out any more, head to my website, greenmountains.co.uk, and I'd love to chat to you more about mindfulness. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.